And now to our first conversation. Pensioners among the hardest hit by high inflation rates in Nigeria, soaring prices of goods and services, eating into their fixed monthly pay. Pensioners have seen the value of their monthly pension incomes go down by over 400% in the last 7 years without any increment. Let's discuss this and other issues now with Davida Chetabu, a certified wealth manager and pension expert. Join us right here on Business Morning. Great to have you.
Thank you very much, Laddie.
Yeah, so quite interesting times.
Very.
Global inflation on the rise. We're seeing it up 17.71% here in Nigeria. And we see food inflation about 18.37% from 17.2%.
Absolutely.
It seems pensioners are feeling the heat.
Yes, they are.
Right now.
Yes, they are. Before I launch into that, I would first of all appreciate you and the entire management for having me on board. I'm glad to be here, and hopefully at the end of this session we'll all be in better places. Okay.
Right.
So, well, yes, the inflation is hitting everybody hard. Particularly pensioners in this conversation because they're the most vulnerable due to age and possibly health challenges and the like. But that being said, it hasn't been all doom and gloom, so to speak. There have been occasions, I believe it started in 2018, where the monthly pension payments to pensioners, especially under the contributory pension scheme, that's the new one,
right,
have experienced enhanced monthly payments. So the first payout that was increased was in 2018. Another one happened about 2 years after in 2020. So if we go by that trend, we're expecting that possibly before the year is over or early next year, there would also be, another enhancement for them. Something that would help, augment, life and costs, as the case may be.
Right, because it would be quite painful, to get to that age where you can't work anymore and you can only afford to buy coffee with your pension. But what are the options, available? You are seeing purchasing power being eroded here.
Yes.
What are the options?
With regards to options specifically for pensioners, we err on the side of caution. If somebody is a pensioner, maybe at this point I should just quickly define who a pensioner is, just for everybody's benefit. A pensioner would be somebody who has retired from employment and leaves on a monthly pension. So in this case, a pensioner and a retiree can be used simultaneously. We often advise retirees, pensioners, not to delve into new businesses in their old age, particularly with their nest egg. We have seen in the industry, heard in the industry, where people are told interesting, magical, amazing, glorious stories about some business deal that has never ever been done before, told only to them, and they would clean out, and well, unfortunately, they have fallen victims.
Promise of incredible profits.
Incredible profits, right. Another one would be that pensioners delve into business where they do not have that skill, because the life and the expertise of somebody who has worked in corporate is different from somebody who's run business. There are two different skill sets, two different orientations. So at this point, the advice to pensioners would be, like everybody else really, would be to prioritize your needs. All the frivolities that we're used to having. Life is in cycles. There are times to pull back a little bit in order to make ends meet. This challenge that we're facing here in Nigeria is not unique to Nigeria. We have heard from relatives, from friends, and even from the news across the globe, where people are now beginning to pay a little bit more attention to where they're spending money and what's important.
Right, and everyone now is trying to save.
Absolutely.
Save a buck or two.
Absolutely.
But what would you say, the government can do, to, some kind of buffer, for these pensioners?
Off the top of my head, I'm sure, like so many other people, we would like to ask, let's have a social security scheme that would take care of our elderly. But between you and I, in the industry, even in Nigeria, we know that that would be a medium to long-term project. data is an issue for us, monitoring, commissioning, the payments, everything about that entire request is going to be a bit tricky, But in the short term, the only other way, to make sure that these pensioners have some buffer would be an indirect approach. An indirect approach because I'm going to tie it to our culture and what is actually happening. No need speaking in highfalutin language. You, I, and a lot of people in our generation, that's the active workforce, we are essentially the pension plan for our elderly parents and grandparents. It is what it is.
Black tax.
It is. Right. It is. We know what to do. We may not like it, but we are never going to get to the point where we turn our backs on our elderly parents and say, you lived your life, and so it's time for me to live mine. Now, all that I can immediately imagine would be that the government provides people in our caliber, especially people who run SMEs, some cushion, some policy relaxation to make doing business in Nigeria, easier. If it's easier for the workforce, who are typically the predominant pension plan for the aged, it will trickle to them while they are setting in place a social security program. So it's never going to be a one size fits all. It's going to have to be a multidimensional approach to managing this situation.
Quite interesting, quite interesting. But I saw the National Pension Commission revealed that about 9,570 Nigerians who were disengaged by their employees. We drew about 5.66 billion naira from their pension contribution in the first quarter of this year. Yes. What does this tell us?
Okay, so I'm going to answer it from two perspectives. It tells us, first and foremost, that the contributory pension scheme is working. Because at the end of the day, the main essence of the pension scheme is that when you qualify to access your funds, you get your funds. So if over 9,500 people have accessed over 5.5 trillion in the first quarter, it means that it is living up to its expectations. Now, on the other hand, I would like to dimension it a little bit. Now, I believe, and I dare say, I believe that within that 9,500 people who were disengaged, the term disengaged would most likely have been used because they applied for 25%. 25% being that you have been out of employment for a minimum of 4 months, and as such, you are qualified to take that portion towards leaving. Now, we are very much aware that a lot of our workforce, healthy workforce, have relocated, are in the process of relocating.
Right.
So a portion of that, I dare say probably a good chunk of it, would not be necessarily because employers have disengaged 9,500 people, but because people over time have been relocating, and after 4 months, they are eligible to withdraw from those funds. So it's a mixed basket. Yes, there would be some disengagements, but we're also seeing pension registration. So it means that even as companies are letting go of people, there are companies who are equally employing.
Right.
So that's what I can say to that.
Okay. Well, for those of us, still in the workforce and still, hustling, day to day, and trying to avoid that old age poverty.
Yes.
What should we be doing now?
Okay. Now, we may not like it, but first things first, we need to first of all project ourselves as pensioners. If you are able to project yourself as a pensioner, it means that you've put yourself in the future, and you're able to connect backwards to where you currently are, and then you can make the right decisions. First of all, you have control only of the money in your pocket, in your custody. Trim your expenses. Not just for us, but we're going to see very quickly that the easiest way to at least hold your position and gauge your reality would be to control your expenses. So if you were doing 5 vacations a year, perhaps you may consider 3 staycations and 2 vacations if you really need to. You know, you're going to need to dust your budget and really look at things in a very, very unemotional manner. You cannot go wrong with multiple streams of income. But many people have also fallen into dodgy situations. So what, again, we will advise is research these streams of income very well and make sure that you go into what you know or what you can get sufficient information and credibility on and not get into hot water.
And hopefully make that decision on time.
No.
So you don't miss the opportunity.
Absolutely. The best time to plan for your pension is from your first paycheck. The second best time is now that you hear the information. The only thing is that when you're closer to retirement, then you have to double the effort or triple the effort. You know, again, depending on the type of lifestyle you intend to have at that time. But again, I look back in retrospect. There are many people who planned their lifestyles, who planned their monies, who made everything available, but life happened. We had, first of all, had the 2007 stock market crash. Then we had recession that hit us, I think, between 2015 and 18 in that territory. And then we've had COVID that slammed us in the face in the 2020s. So
now we have a war.
Now we have a war, and we're feeling the heat, and we're not even at war with them.
Right.
But these are how things are happening now. So we can only but do the very best we can, hope for the best, put our plans into action, and then leave.
Right, doesn't mean you shouldn't contribute.
No, we must leave. We must leave. We must leave.
Right. All right, so there have been conversations about micro pension targeting, you know, for informal workers. So tell us about this, because you see informal workers, they don't even have enough to actually, you know, get by.
Or they think they don't have enough.
Or they think they think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always something to put aside.
There's always something. I mean, throw a party, they'll turn up.
Right.
In the right clothes. So there's always something. Now, the micro pension scheme started about 3 years ago, 2019, March, I believe. Similar to how this current RSA, the contributory pension scheme, started. It was a bit slow on the offtake, same as it's been reflected as well in the micro pension space. We have about over 76,000 clients who are registered in the micro pension space, and just about 250 million AUM. You know, obviously not every PFA is playing in that field yet, but it will pick up. Now, with regards to that micro pension space, it's very critical because the bulk of the workforce, active workforce, fall in that category. They are not necessarily in paid employment like a lot of us, you know. So if we do not do something to get their buy-in and get them involved in that scheme, we're going to find this cycle of old age dependency and disaster always looking at us in the face. Now, a lot of engagements have started happening, but it hasn't yet taken off the way it ought to. It's meant to be flexible enough to let, you know, informal workers, you know, contribute no matter how little. So it's going to be I would easily, just for the sake of ease of understanding, call it a structured adjunct-like type thing. So the values that are going to be going in there are not necessarily heavy values. They're going to be values that would be easier for the informal workers. Now, the work and the trick there is because in that sector, they are not used to delayed reward or benefits, you know, so there's going to be a lot of enlightenment, campaigning to adjust their minds, you know, that this thing is good. However, you would need to wait a little bit. Now, the way it's been handled is you have to go through associations. You know, there are associations in the market, the taxi drivers, the fashion, the artists, you know. All these associations would be the best channels so that at least there is a way of tracking who these individuals are, and it's not a free-for-all opportunity for fraudulent or money laundering activities.
Like yes. Nobody runs away with your ajo money. All right, thank you so much, David Echetabu, Certified Wealth Manager and Pension Expert. It was great having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, commodities market update is next. Take a look at what's happening in the oil market. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning.